Welcome to RSAC Conference 2025. We're here recording live from the Cyber Risk TV studio in Broadcast Alley at Moscone West. I'm your host, Mandy Logan, and joining me for this interview is Chaz Clawson, Field CTO Security at Sumo Logic. Welcome, Chaz.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.
I am very glad you're here, and as I mentioned right before we started filming, I am thrilled that you're a CTO and we can talk technical. So with that in mind, did you have something
Well,
to say?
I was going to say I'm a former practitioner at heart, so I like getting down into the details.
Excellent. And I am very curious about Sumo Logic's position on Intelligent SecOps. Is there something there that you want to start us off with?
Yeah, so I would say I think the industry has been promising more intelligent security operations for a long time, and for a variety of reasons there's been a lot of barriers to get that, right? And so right now I think we're seeing a huge shift, especially with generative AI, which is everybody, it's top of mind for most people. Rightly so, because it has the ability to really turn things around. In the past, it was really human-led investigation, AI assisted, which is great. That's kind of the state that we're in today. And I expect in the very near future, it's going to be AI led and human reviewed, right? So that's really what intelligent security operations is all about, is taking advantage of these models that can really chew through huge amounts of data, provide that correlation, and then the human can come over the top and gain, huge time savings and say, all right, do we agree with the hypothesis here? And then how do we incorporate autonomy, like, automated response, automated remediation? So, and you would appreciate this. I think the pain of the practitioner is still very, very real. And, things like alert fatigue, analyst burnout, like,
Right.
come on, we've been talking about this forever. So hopefully, optimistically, and as fellow defenders, I think we're now at the point where we can safely say, all right, they're going to have a quote unquote like agent to help, a co-pilot or whatever flavor that ends up being, to level up, what they're trying to accomplish in defending the enterprise. So it's exciting, right? It's changing so fast. We'll see where it goes.
It absolutely is fantastic. And so if I'm hearing you correctly, you're talking about in the SOC being able to go from just assistive AI to actually having agentic AI that is working on behalf of the practitioner?
Exactly. And so at Sumo, we were one of the first to embed like what we call the co-pilot or mo-pilot,
Okay.
which is,
Huh.
hey, does every analyst need to be, a ninja at writing queries? Well, not anymore. Provide that natural language interface so you can just say, show me all the failed logins for Bob over the last 24 hours and, visualize it on a map. That's where we are today, which is great. The next iteration of that is going to be more opinionated, right? So, you know, what are the hypotheses? Like, how would you investigate that? Provide suggestions for the analyst to actually investigate it in various ways. And so that's going to be exciting to see, because now the analyst is kind of steering it with the assistance of this agent. And that's, you keep hearing about agentic AI. What does that mean? Various definitions, but I think really it's all about like bringing on additional support in the form of artificial intelligence, right?
Absolutely. And now, do you get as excited as I do about the fact that there is so much data? We do have so much data that is collected constantly.
So, well, it's funny that you say that, because the problem used to be just scale. Can we bring all the data in at scale, the telemetry that we need to answer these questions, to do this correlation? And it's one of those, be careful what you ask for, because now we're sitting on heaps of data, so much data, and what do we do with it? Well, the good news is, handling textual data in the form of logs specifically is what generative AI is good at.
Yeah.
And so Sumo Logic happens to be sitting on one of the biggest data repositories in the world. Last I looked, I think we analyzed 3.5 exabytes of data a day, right?
A day, really?
And that's across, thousands of customers streaming in logs into a multi-tenant platform. And so we've got this mountain of data, and now we're like, okay, there's, like you said, there's a lot of intelligence in there if we can find it. And so that's kind of, we're on the cusp of like, wow, this is going to really unlock a lot of doors for customers.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that is, in today's world, you're moving toward that being gold.
Yeah.
and being able to
Data is gold.
effectively,
Yeah.
it is gold.
Yeah.
And so with that, is it from that data set or from your real world experiences with your customers, or from your view as a former practicing technician, I guess we would
Yep.
call it,
Yep.
um, what are some of the biggest blockers that security teams are facing right now in the rise of AI?
So, I don't know if it's a blocker, but I would say the velocity in which the adversaries are operating is becoming a bigger challenge, and partly it's the same shift that they're taking advantage of. It's like every new technology is weaponized, and so as the defenders are trying to quickly adopt AI into their solutioning, the adversaries are also like, okay, what can we do to accelerate our,
Correct.
and so that's probably one of the challenges, because when it used to be, the mean time to detection and how long did it take for an adversary to get a foothold all the way to data exfiltration or damage. Now all of a sudden it's gone from hours or weeks to days to minutes. And so that means that the security analysts now have to be on top of their game. What's the answer to that? And I think it really falls in line with what we've been talking about, which is, can AI bridge the gap, right? So it's that cat and mouse game that is forever, I guess.
Absolutely, but if I remember correctly, with Sumo Logic, you had already experienced real world feedback of, I think it was mean time to remediate being decreased by 60%.
Well, yes. So we acquired not too long ago a SOAR platform, right? The
Okay.
security operation or orchestration and automated response. And as a company, we looked at that technology, which is, the playbooks that you're familiar with. How do you automate the task that an analyst has to do every time they're investigating? Um, and we decided, you know what, we need to just give this technology away for free. And so a lot of that automation now is embedded in our core product at no cost. And that's where we saw huge gains in the mean time to response and investigation, because now an alert fires and the alert's automatically doing enrichment, reputational lookups, creating tickets, notifying you via chat ops or whatever. And so that chain reaction is already in place. So it's really helped, all of the tasks that nobody likes to do, like, oh great, another alert.
Right.
Let me open up my playbook or my run book, and all of that's now gone. They can really focus on the meat of what the actual event is. Um, Now the other, I guess, side of the coin is, I guess one of the biggest hindrances, in my opinion, for true automated response has been the garbage in, garbage out problem. Like, you can't feed in like a bad alert
True.
into a system that's gonna like DDoS your executive. Like, you don't want to get that phone call, right? Like, who shut off my account?
No.
Now all of a sudden the alerts are better in fidelity, and so you can be more confident in your automation. And I think that's the shit. Like, not a lot of people here at like RSA specifically are talking about automation because it's past its hype cycle. But what I think they're realizing is automation directly benefits from, AI, because the alerts are
For sure.
better. You can feed it into your automation more confidently. So that's going to be a huge shift, I think, too.
Well, and even though I don't hold that AI is the be all and end all
Hmm.
of every advancement that can go on,
Right.
I do think it's incredibly fascinating that we happen to be in a niche where there is the actual data, like you're talking about, that
Right.
can be used.
Right.
And it's so much more accessible. Plus, we have a lot of very talented practitioners
Hmm.
and security teams that actually thrive on being able to understand how they can more quickly detect, remediate, and
Right.
create solutions consistently for their
Hmm.
teams. And for all of that, it is such a, I feel like it's a point of pride for being in this industry, because we do get to see that. And I am curious now with Sumo Logic, or you yourself, what you have done. Is there any portion of your focus, research, or operations that have to go with securing LLMs or AI themselves, or if like a company has proprietary LLMs or AI that they are using?
Yeah, that is actually a very interesting question. Security is always a little bit behind, right? So new
Yes.
technology comes out, and then everybody's like, adopt it, and they're like, wait a minute, are we doing this securely? And so I think you're asking the right question. The answer is yes. Fortunately, because we're a cloud native security analytics platform, we have all the plumbing in place. So for example, Amazon Bedrock is one of the leading like ways to adopt large language models because they host all of the popular, platforms like Cloud and Anthropic Cloud or Open AI or DeepSeek or whatever flavor. And so because they're now,
No, can I insert
yeah,
here real quick? So I hadn't actually thought this through until
hmm
recently, but I understand like LLMs can't be patched. So you're talking about completely scrapping.
well, the thing is, in some ways, if you choose to go with Amazon Bedrock, they're hosting
They're
that for
handling it,
you, and
right?
so that shared responsibility is nice because you're not interfacing directly with DeepSeek, which I would say that there would be security concerns there because you don't know what happens when you throw the data over the fence. But if it's hosted privately
Hmm.
in the Amazon cloud, I think there's a little bit more assurances there. And then to your earlier question is, fortunately, AWS has a lot of telemetry around all of their services. So you can actually monitor, what are the VPC flow logs and the service calls and the API activity around Amazon Bedrock, for example.
Right.
And so now all of a sudden you can monitor your use of AI to make sure it's being done safely. Um, you know, is it going rogue? The,
Right.
the the fears that sci-fi always like, do I really want an autonomous agent working on behalf of my company? Well, do it safely, obviously, but make sure you have your security controls because it is new technology, to be honest, and a lot of people are a little bit unsure, just like when cloud was on the rise, right? And so I think you're ahead of the curve a little bit, and we need to start thinking about, okay, be aggressive with your AI strategy, but also don't forget to bring in the governance. I think it's ISO 42001,
42,000, right? Yeah.
whatever it
Yes.
is. Like, be pragmatic and understand the risk, and don't just go guns blazing. Make sure you do it in a safe way.
I want to go back to something that, well, I think it was actually from a blog post of yours that I had read.
hmm
Cloudy with a Chance of Patching, I think was the title, which I enjoyed. But talking about that move to cloud services, where really we saw cloud providers willingly take on a much larger share of responsibility for securing an organization's infrastructure and security operations in a way. So with Sumo Logic and the unified threat intelligence, what are benefits you can see for SOCs and for analysts that are doing things like working with Bedrock
hmm
and they can use the unified threat intelligence from Sumo Logic? What are the benefits to them?
Yeah, so the challenge with security, as you know, because you've been in this industry for a long time too, but it's always like, how do we become a business enabler instead of a hindrance? And we need to attack security as a problem of, all right, we need to support the business, and the risk aspect of cyber, at the end of the day, it has a financial impact as well. And so when you look at risk, you have to do it through two lenses. Really, it's the cyber risk, which is kind of what we do every day. Like, are you monitoring? What's your security operations stack and tooling and all of that? But there's also the innovator's risk, which is if you don't move fast enough, then the competitors will beat you. And at the end of the day, you're going
True.
to lose. And so, how do you balance the innovator's risk, moving too slow, being too cautious, with the cyber risk and not being cautious enough? And so, the SaaS shared responsibility model, of course, has helped tremendously because it lifts a lot of that fundamental, infrastructure burden off of the builders and the solutioners. Um, but you just have to be thoughtful, right? Like, how do we move fast and break things, but at the same time don't break too many things, right? Because your reputation is on the line. And so, it's one of those things as security practitioners that you really have to balance. If you're constantly saying no, or you're constantly throwing up too many controls, then you're not going to be invited to the conversation at all. Unfortunately, we've been there, right? And so balancing that and figuring out ways that you can help the business, I think, is the right approach there.
Beautiful. So, is it your take, just quickly as we wrap up here, that with the advancing use of AI and eventually AI agents on behalf of the company, that the perimeter becomes even more like a Burning Man camp
Yeah,
instead of instead of a nice established hotel.
right. I mean, yeah, that was the call out in the article. Gosh, like what does the horizon hold? I don't know. I mean, it is the wild, wild west out there, and um, you know, I was just talking with somebody down at our booth, and they're like, non-human identities or
Right.
non-human entities have always been at risk, right? I've heard the number 10 to 1 is like there's 10 non-human accounts to every one real person.
Right.
And now all of a sudden we're introducing the autonomous agent that can actually be smart and do things and be goal oriented. So are we ready for this? Like that could be the Burning Man, like, and
Right.
it's like, is that too sci-fi? Like, who knows? All of these autonomous agents going around working on your behalf is a good thing, but just be careful, right? Be careful on how you do
Excellent.
it. So
Well, thank you so much, Chaz.
yeah.
And I definitely want to invite the audience to check into what Sumo Logic is providing and all of the thought and planning you are putting into making sure your customers are as secure as
Right.
possible.
Yeah, well, thank you for your time. It's a great conversation.
Excellent. To find out more about Sumo Logic, please visit securityweekly.com/Sumo Logic RSAC. For all RSAC 2025 coverage by Cyber Risk Alliance, please visit securityweekly.com/RSAC. Thanks again, Chaz Clawson, for this conversation. To our audience, stick around. We'll be back after the break with more interviews live from RSAC Conference 2025. Thank you, Chaz.